Dear all, apologize for the delay, but our dean had an accident, I believe, but he's on his way here. Apologize for the delay, but please wait for us a few minutes and we will start very soon. Thank you very much for your patience. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all participants joining us from across the globe. It is an honor to welcome you to the first online Pre-Moot of the University of Chile in preparation for the 32nd version of the William C. Biss International Commercial Arbitration Moot. This event represents a significant milestone for our institution as we continue to foster excellence in international arbitration and commercial law. Today, we are privileged to have distinguished guests and experts who will share their insights and officially open this event. To begin, it is my pleasure to introduce the Dean of the Faculty of Law of the University of Chile, Professor Pablo Ruiz-Tagle, who will deliver the opening remarks. Professor Ruiz-Tagle.
Thank you very much. Good morning. I salute the people that's in this room, Professor Francisco González, Professor Victoria de Marchi, Professor Pedro Zelaya, students, members of this community, and also by Zoom, we are together with Professor Stefan Kroll, and he's a German professor and some other members of this group of moot court. competitions. One of the aims of this administration as a dean is to have a law school that is more international in its scope, that is capable to interact with university and professional communities of all around the world. So this activity is precisely what I imagine. It's one of the things we have to do. So to become more international, our law school is very distinguished, it's very powerful in our country, but for some years it has become like inward looking. So this is why I'm very pleased to welcome you, to welcome University Chile at this first Pre-Moot experience. That is a preparation for the international moot. This is part of the policy that I have commented a few minutes ago. The prefix pre means something that precedes a more important event. This is why we know that there are prequels to certain films or works of art or novels, that there may be a pre-heart attack before we have a massive heart attack, and the word pre is used once and again in our language to show this preparatory or anticipatory experience. However, it happens that sometimes these prequels can be so powerful as the original experience itself. They can serve to change things. They can serve also, they can be useful to prevent future negative experiences. This Pre-Moot is the first in the stand in Chile, and for this reason I congratulate and thank Professor Gonzalez and Professor De Marchi and all who attend today. The faculty lunch, the most important room of our law school, is in preparation for the William C. Viss International Commercial Arbitration Moot. The moot I have just named was first proposed at the Congress of the United Nations Commission on International Trade Law, UNCITRAL, in 1992. In discussing the various reasons and actions that may be taken to stimulate awareness of the United Nations Committee on Contracts for the International Sale of Goods, some members of this commission suggested that a competition in the form of a moot similar or based upon the experience of the famous Jessup competition in the field of public international law would stimulate student interest around the world and also provide more knowledge on the convention. Jessup competition is an experience, a moot competition I participated and I value a lot. Jessup Law Moot was established several years ago 1960, and is being held every year in a continuous form and is today the largest moot court competition by far. Anyway, we can ask ourselves, are moots useful? In my case, I have no doubt they are very useful, not only for the students, not only for the professors that participate, for the arbiter, the judges, but for the legal community as a whole. For law students whose mother tongue is not English, that are not native English speakers, the moot has become a context using a fictitious legal case that is argued entirely in English in its written memorial and also in oral arguments. This experience can provide not only a worthwhile tool, but also a knowledge of an entire group of institutions, a new system of law, the rules and practice of arbitration, comparative law, and of course, international law, among other things that are part of the moot experience. If we aim to teach international commercial arbitration, it's hard to explain things that you cannot see, you cannot experience directly. So moots are precisely that way, that method that is able or enables students to teach business law and would call for a different educational technique and expose young lawyers, students, to this new approach towards law that becomes precisely the study and the decision proposed in the case that is proposed before the different teams. The legal issues that arise in the moot are those that are, I would say, most fashionable, most, contemporary, because professors and judges who work on these cases want to try with the students precisely the issues, the cases that are before their actual experience as judge. To the extent possible, the issues are in some way also related to the application of arbitration rules. It also teaches students something about the role of institutions, new institutions from different legal systems, and moots also represent a way of understanding issues that are trendy, that are not yet solved sometimes by courts, that are not being approached directly by the profession. So they are like a tour into a new country, a new part of the world that is unknown, that requires the use of reason and the use of law, so to map, deliberate, and decide what is at stake in those cases. And another thing we can say about the practice in moots is the high degree of teamwork that is experienced in all these competitions. The study of law is mostly an individual experience, but in moot courts, You have to create a team, a group of students, a group of people who face the case, who have different functions. Some of them argue in oral arguments, part of the case. Some of them are good at writing, others at research. And the teamwork is what defines the success or not of the groups that participate in this experience. The required depths of knowledge of the facts, the different interpretations of the laws that belong to different legal systems, the skills, the connection of law with economy, with sociology, with history, are part of the moot court in itself. So the teams that work in these cases are judged on the performance of the entire group, not only in one or two of the individuals. What is true then in legal practice is also true in moot. Success either comes for the effort made by a group, an entire team, or will not be possible at all. Furthermore, in respect of the language, the legal and rhetoric skills that are used in the written memorial, in the oral arguments as well, can be substantially improved by participating in a moot in a continuous form. Perhaps the first time it's not so good, but the skills can be reinforced, can be substantially improved, as I say. This goes beyond a question of simple education. It also creates the possibility of becoming a better person, a person that is more humble by knowing the experience and the strengths of other teams, the complexities of other legal systems, and also you become a better person by building new friendships, new linkages around the world, people you were not able to know, but now in the moot experience you are able to have direct contact with them and know about their lives, their future lives, and perhaps find them in new scenarios, in new professional and academic and work in the judiciary, whatever you may have in your future life. These are the reasons why I strongly congratulate and celebrate this initiative of Pre-Moot in this session. It includes, in this case, a panel on the importance both of international arbitration and a moot competition. The speakers today, we have the tremendous luck and we are very happy. We will hear experts in this field, Professor Stefan Kroll from Germany and Professors Francisco González and Victoria De Marchi from the University of Chile. Of course, we have also several students that will be able to watch and attend this experience. The arbitration panel for the final decision also include Professor Elena Mermiskaya. I salute him especially. And she was an excellent professor of this law school, and I hope she can come back. and Claudio Finkelstein and Francisco Gonzalez, who will decide the case that's gonna be put before your to argue about. So I welcome all of you, and I thank you very much for your kind attention to my words. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dean Ristagle. The support of the University of Chile has been instrumental in making this initiative a reality. Next, we have the honor of welcoming our recognized panelists who are leading experts in the field of arbitration and civil law. They will share their thoughts on the importance of international arbitration and the role of moot competitions in shaping the next generation of legal professionals. Our first speaker is Professor Stefan Kroll, a renowned expert in international arbitration, professor at Bucerius Law School in Hamburg, and director of the Center for International Dispute Resolution. Joining us online from Hamburg, Professor Kroll is also the president of the German Arbitration Institute and a member of the International Advisory Board of the Arbitration Institute of the Finland Chamber of Commerce. As an independent arbitrator, he has sat in more than 19 arbitrations, ICC, DIS, Swiss rule, among others, involving private and state parties. Professor Kroll is regularly listed as one of the leading arbitration experts and among the most in-demand arbitrators in Germany. Professor Kroll, you may proceed.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction, and thank you very much for having me. It's a great pleasure and honor for me to be allowed to say some words at the first Pre-Moot organized by the University of Chile. First of all, let me start with a word of thank you to the University of Chile and in particular the organizers. There are probably few people in this world who know, like me, as good as I do, how much work it is to organize an event like that, and in particular to organize an event if it's online. If it's in person, at least you have the benefit of seeing friends. If it's online, the problem is you will have additional glitches which may happen. You will have arbitrators who are in their offices and then somehow a client walks in, and you will have teams which operate in different time zones in the middle of the night, realize that they have miscalculated the time zones and other issues which may happen if you do things online. Nevertheless, I'm fairly certain that at the end of that, all organizers will consider that to be a rewarding exercise, looking at the number of teams which have applied, which were over 80, which is impressive for the first time you organize a moot, and then the number of teams admitted coming from all over the world, the 40 teams, plus the numerous arbitrators coming from all over the world. I'm pretty sure most of them, like me, would have preferred to be actually in Chile itself, taste a little bit of the wonderful Chilean wine, and meet friends in person. Nevertheless, these type of online moot courts are incredibly important for the type of education we want to provide with the WIS. Because there are a number of teams which have problems participating in all these pre-moots which are organized around the world. And for those teams, it's crucial to be able to participate in online versions, to be on a comparable level like the teams which can travel or which have the benefit being located in a country where you have numerous teams competing. In preparing for a moot, you have the written phase, which is very important to get the basis. But the fun part of the moot is usually the oral phase, when you are there and have the chance to use all the arguments you developed. and show them in front of a tribunal, which is very often very diverse, which has a slightly different approach to the problems, and which may also have a different approach to presenting the problems. For me, it's always incredibly interesting to see the case pleaded for the first time and see the case then pleaded at the end when you sit in the final or see the people in the final or the semi-final. And you see the considerable improvement in way of presentation. And I can tell you that already at that stage, probably, I would be very happy that I already have a career in arbitration, that I do not have to compete with some of you who are such excellent speakers and present the case in a way I would hope most people would present their case in front of me. That would make it much more fun and would make it much easier for the arbitrators to decide. Though it's an online moot, it's incredibly important also for the last part of the experience we want to provide with the moot, the social part. Because even if you have just met online in a hearing, you have already formed a certain link. And usually teams who have participated online then meet up in Vienna or Hong Kong, wherever you participate, and there is already a first linkage there. And for us, this link between the various teams, the understanding and the perhaps friendship thereafter is an important element of the moot and an indispensable element of the moot, because in times like ours, peaceful dispute resolution and having friends all over the world, everywhere, is an important element to make the world a little bit a better place. I was asked by Francisco not to talk too long, so that it's a very good excuse for me not to say too much about the substantive part, because by now, most of you will already know more about multi-tier clauses, taking of evidence, privileges, or the scope of application of the CSG than I. I drafted the case some time ago. I answered your 2,000 questions also some time ago, and since then I have already forgotten a lot of what is in the case, and I'm again surprised when I see what parts of the case you have found to be interesting and what parts of the case which I found to be interesting are not high on your list. Most of you will have realized that we have made now accessible the underlying calculation in the arbitrator's brief, because there were questions by teams whether they could use it. That is how I calculated the various issues, and probably you will know why the calculation may be important and facilitates the pleading a little bit. With that, let me just shortly refer to what are the issues in the moot court case and where does it come from. At the weekend, I was in London at the 10th London Pre-Moot, and the people in London were surprised that the evidentiary part were influenced by an English decision. Some of you may have seen it because it's one of the most famous English decisions over the last few years, with the Nigerian case, where you had an issue which always is an important issue to be tackled. What happens if one of the parties has access to evidence which is privileged or which it should not have? In the Nigerian case, there was a government official which basically provided the claimant with access to the submissions of the Nigerian and the strategy of the Nigerian lawyers' teams. And that went into this moot court problem. So you see that a lot of the cases or a lot of the problems are real life problems, slightly amended. And that also allows you to argue with types of cases which are comparable, where you have a comparable issue which doesn't fit 100%. But you can be sure that then someone will want to know the details, and it's better for you to be prepared to deal with the details. I'm fairly certain that given this diverse participation in this pre-moot, you will learn over the course of today and tomorrow a number of new cases from jurisdictions with which you're not familiar. And my advice is take the opportunity to take a look at them because they may come up again in Vienna. With that, I've probably overstretched already the 7 minutes allocated to me, and I wish you all a great event at the University of Chile, online wherever you are, and I look forward to seeing you either in Hong Kong, at the CAMSI CBC Pre-Moot in Hamburg at my law school, Buceres Law School, or then later in Vienna. And by that time, I'm pretty sure your arguments will be even more refined than they are already today. And that's also thanks to my friend Francisco and his team by providing the opportunity to participate in this online pre-moot. Have a great time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Cole, for your insightful remarks. We now turn to our second distinguished panelist, Professor Francisco Gonzalez. He is a lawyer with over 28 years of experience in civil, commercial, competition law, and arbitration, all in Chile and internationally. He holds a Master's of Law degree from Harvard University, and he is the founding partner of González Rioseco Law Firm in Chile, where he has led several significant arbitration and litigation cases. Since 1997, he has been a professor of civil law at the University of Chile, contributing to the training of new generation of lawyers. Additionally, Francisco Gonzalez is a member of the London Court of International Arbitration and the International Council of Commercial Arbitration. Professor Gonzalez, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I want to make 3 points. First, almost 100 years ago to the date, a professor called Ernst Rabel was appointed as director of the institute that today is called Max Planck Institute for Comparative and International Private Law. In those days, it was in Berlin, then it moved to Hamburg. That institute is very keen to us since its former director, Professor Reinhard Zimmermann, was awarded a PhD honoris causa by Universidad of Chile 2 years ago. But my point is, 100 years ago, Ernst Rabel was the pioneer and the mastermind of the unification and harmonization of the law of sales. He worked either alone or together with members of UNIDROIT for almost 30 years, from 1926 until 1955, when he died, after his exile in the US due to the war. My point here is, without a jurist, a fine jurist, as Professor Ernst Rabel, there would have been no CISG. And without CISG, there would be no Bismuth. So I want to pay homage to his trajectory and to his efforts. And in calling his name, in remembering his name, my first point to you is to remember that law is a theoretical endeavor. Law is thinking. Law is reasoning. Law is convincing through good arguments. And that's what you have to show in the Bismuth, in this pre-moot, and in Vienna. Second, I want to tell a short story about when we brought the Bismuth as a class to University of Chile. It was like a pretty lady. Everyone wanted to have the Bismuth in his department. So the Department of Private Law said, well, this is the law of sales. Law of sales has 2,000 years old. We're a civil law country. We have a civil code, a very old civil code, 1855. 102 pages of the civil code are dedicated to the law of sales. We are in the best position to have the Pre-Moot. Our friends from the Department of Procedural Law said, come on, guys, this is dispute resolution. I mean, this belongs to us. This should be taught here under us. Of course, the people from international law said, you are all wrong. We are dealing with an international treaty that should be interpreted and applied in Chile, and international treaties are taught in the Department of International Law or International Private Law. And finally, the people from the clinical legal work said, well, come on, this is forensic skills. We are teaching how to talk, we're teaching how to write with persuasion. This was a very interesting conversation that, of course, was won by the Department of Private Law. And that's why Professor DeMarchi, who is in that department, and me are there. And one of the reasons for being in the Department of Private Law was precisely the work done by Ernst Rabel, especially his masterpiece on the law of sales from 1936. But my second point with this story is that the Pre-Moot teaches at least these 4 disciplines. That's why we say the Pre-Moot is the best class in this faculty, because you learn private law, you learn procedural law, you learn forensic skills, and you learn international law. So the message here is law is a balanced activity in which you have to consider and take into consideration all these 4 aspects or fields of law. And finally, I'm pretty sure that the 40 teams that are participating in this Pre-Moot have read this many, many times, which is rules on oratory skills. In other words, this is like a mantra that you should repeat and repeat and repeat and apply and apply and apply. I will read the most common 9 rules on persuasive oratory. Number 1, start convincingly. Number 2, go to court appropriately. Number 3, stop when it is necessary. Number 4, keep it simple, which has a variation, which is if somebody did not understand, this keep it simple is keep it simple, stupid. KISS, with an S at the end. Structure your presentation, know the facts, be articulate. Number 8, behave like a team. And number 9, finish energetically. I advise you that from now until the Pre-Moot in Vienna, you repeat and repeat and repeat these rules, and you apply these rules. You go to brush your teeth, you repeat the rules. You go to lunch, you repeat the rules. You go out with your boyfriend, girlfriend, you say, give me 3 minutes, I have my mantra to repeat. And finally, please remember that law is founded in theoretical thinking, as we remember with the story of Professor Rabel. That law is at least a 4-dimensional discipline, but also, and I think Professor DeMarchi will go into this, law is not just logic. You don't just win a case with logical argument. Law, at the end of the day, is persuasion. And if you want to win a case, you have to be persuasive. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Gonzalez, for your valuable contributions. Next, Professor Victoria De Marchi. She is a lawyer specializing in international arbitration and dispute resolution. She holds a Master of Law degree from Columbia University as a Fulbright scholar and has extensive experience in ICC, ICSID, AAA, and other arbitration proceedings. She is a partner at Hanna and Hill Dispute Resolution, where she acts as a counsel in high-stakes commercial and investment arbitrations. Previously, she works as an associate in international arbitration team of DeBevois and Plimpton in New York. Recognized in leading legal guides, she also serves as an arbitrator under the Chilean Chamber of Commerce rules. In addition to her practice, she teaches private law at the University of Chile and participates as a legal expert in the Chilean bar. She currently represents Chile in YOUNG-SIAC, Singapore Arbitration Center, and previously held the same role in ALARF, the Latin American Arbitration Association. Professor De Marchi, please proceed.
Thank you, Maria Elena. Good morning, all. Thank you, Dean Ristagle, Professor Kroll, Professor Gonzalez. It's a real honor to be here with you, sharing the floor. And welcome all the arbitration community and these young law students that wants to be arbitration practitioner. Some time ago, I was sitting in an arbitration hearing, watching the opposing counsel present their case. They had done everything technically right, cited every clause, referenced every precedent, structured their argument perfectly. But something wasn't landing. The arbitrators were listening, but they weren't engaged. And then one of them interrupted with a simple question. Yes, but what's the story here? I was a rookie then, was 10, 12 years ago, in the first stage of me being in love with law. And I thought, who cares? I mean, I knew the opposing party had a better legal case than my team. And even I thought, even though I truly believed that my client was right, I also knew this was one of those rare cases where applying the law to the facts wouldn't necessarily lead to the fair result. My partner at that time knew that, and they exploited as much as they could. The opposing lawyer hesitated for a second. They had prepared to argue the law, not tell a story. They tried to recover, throwing in more citations, but the damage was done. Their arguments, though technically solid, never regained momentum. Meanwhile, my team understood that this was not just about legal correctness. It was about framing the case in a way that resonated. We leaned into the bigger picture, the human aspect, the fairness of the outcome, and in the end, we won. That day, I learned, luckily for me, not at my client's expense, something fundamental about our profession. Facts and law matter, but it's the narrative that makes them go through. Fast forward to this year's Pre-Moot case, and that lesson is more relevant than ever. One of the parties is a state-owned energy company, and the dispute arises from a government policy shift on energy and on green energy. That means this case isn't just about contract breaches. It's about political pressures. It's about public scrutiny and transparency issues. One of the key legal debates, whether a state entity can withhold politically sensitive documents in arbitration. Suddenly, Pre-Moot participants aren't just dealing with legal rules. They are confronting real-world dilemmas. How does the law interact with government policy? When does public interest override confidentiality? What happens when a contract becomes a political chess piece? These are not abstract hypotheticals. They are the same issues real arbitration lawyers face when commercial and public interests collide. And that's exactly why practical experience like this Pre-Moot makes such a difference in shaping practitioners. Many lawyers start their career, like me, thinking arbitration is all about legal precision, memorizing the CIC, citing the right provisions, structuring the perfect argument. But as soon as you step into a real hearing, you realize that strategy, psychology, and political awareness are just as important. For instance, in this year case, the claimant skipped mandatory mediation, arguing it was pointless because the respondent had already refused to negotiate. But was that a smart move? Or should they have gone through the emotions just to avoid giving the tribunal an excuse to dismiss their claim? This is the kind of strategic thinking that only comes with experience. Practical training forces young lawyers to make real-time decisions, deal with unpredictable arguments, and navigate the subtle power dynamics in arbitration. It teaches them to think like advocates, not just like law students. Which brings me back to my opening story. The best arbitration lawyers aren't just walking database of legal knowledge. They are strategists and storytellers. A well-told story isn't about theatrics. It's about clarity and persuasion. A strong advocate doesn't just argue that a contract was breached. They explain why it mattered. They don't just cite a provision, they show how it fits into the bigger picture. This year's Pre-Moot case is the perfect example. It's not just a dispute over contract clauses. It's a nation trying to transition to green energy, a government changing course, and a company caught in the crossfire. That's the real story. And the teams that understand how to tell it will be the ones that truly stand out. The Pre-Moot is not just a competition, it's a training ground for holistic lawyering where law meets strategy, policy, and narrative. For those of us in arbitration, the lesson is clear. Success isn't just about knowing the rules, it's about knowing how to make them work. It's about understanding the forces that shape a dispute, not just legal principle, but business, politics, and human nature. So my advice for this Pre-Moot, tell story with your case. Don't just argue the law, explain why it matters, frame the case so that the tribunal feels its significance. Because in the end, the most persuasive lawyers aren't just those who know the rules, but those who know how to tell a great story. Thank you, and I look forward to hear your stories in coming days. Thank you.
Professor Kroll? Sí.
There's nothing I would add to that. Excellent presentation and things I would normally tell my students if I had more time.
Amazing. We're truly grateful for the presence of such esteemed professional, and we look forward to an engaging and enriching Pre-Moot. To all the team, we wish you the best of luck in your pleadings. May the experience help you sharpen your skills and deepen your knowledge of arbitration. With that, we officially declare the first online Pre-Moot of the University of Chile open. Thank you all for being here, and let the arguments begin. Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Cole.
Goodbye.